Whether you're dreaming of a retirement with sand between your toes and a cold one in your hand, hitting the road to chase the winds of adventure, or spending time with your grandchildren, this show is intended to help you get there. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement with your host, Josh Knoll. You've worked too hard throughout your career to spend your retirement worrying. So sit back, kick up your feet, because we've got lots of financial tips and tricks to share to help you get exactly where you want to be. Here's Josh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to have you. Josh Knoll here. Michelle is off this week. She will be back next week. And in her place, we have a very special guest, longtime friend, Mr. Jay Stubbs, Director of the Gulf Coast for Providence Partners. Jay, how you doing?
Josh is doing great today. Good to be with you here in working on Coasting in Retirement and being a part of this program. Always willing to assist you when needed.
Well, we're here. You're back again. Coastal College's recording studio, beautiful downtown Fairhope.
Couldn't find a parking place. Fairhope's growing.
Fairhope has been growing, much to the chagrin. Everybody wants to shut the gate behind them, but unfortunately, they keep on coming. Especially people like me coming down from Missouri.
Well, I did get lucky and didn't have any bayway issues coming from Mobile, so I'm glad to be here.
Very good.
On time.
Well, so listeners, this show, we discuss financial topics relevant to those of you in or near retirement, living your best life along our part of the Gulf Coast. Now, regular listeners will know that I made a couple of exciting announcements on our last episode, but also saved even more breaking news for this episode. So here's how we're going to proceed. Coasting Retirement is divided into 3 segments. Each segment's roughly 20 minutes long. Our first segment, Jay and I are going to discuss some of the more exciting news around my company, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, his company, the one he works with, Providence Partners, and then this radio show, Coasting in Retirement. We're also going to touch on the topic of the day. We're going to discuss long-term care. Our second segment is titled Michelle with the News of the Week, but with Michelle playing hooky today, Jay and I will take turns reading and reacting to relevant headlines around our topic of the day. And then, of course, regular listeners will know that our last segment is titled Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. So I'm going to take Jay to task for his opinion and possibly some predictions on some of the things we both said publicly over the years and some stuff that's hot off the press and the news. So quick background on me for those of you new to the show. Again, my name is Josh Knoll. I'm a fee-based financial advisor. I hold my FINRA Series 65 securities license, and I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. That's an independent investment management and financial planning firm. We have offices in Fairhope, Orange Beach, and coming soon, Mobile. You can find more information on me and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors by visiting our website, gulfcoastfa.com, or feel free to give us a call at 251-327-2124. Now, if you just missed that, do not worry. We will repeat our contact info several times throughout the show. So, Jay, back to you. You currently work with Providence Partners, which we announced kind of a couple episodes ago. It's going to be an official sponsor of this radio show, Coasting in Retirement. So if you don't mind, please share a little bit about Providence Partners, your role, your background, and, I guess why you thought it might be a good idea to sponsor this show, why you thought it'd be a good move.
Sure, Josh. Well, Providence Partners is a 8-year-old company, but with partners that I have worked with for a quarter of a century,
right?
25 years,
basically since the beginning of your career, right?
Yeah. So Providence Partners is based in Birmingham. There's a Nashville operation, and I am the director of the Gulf Coast for Providence Partners. We are a risk management firm. Risk management, to those listening, might be what's he talking about?
Yeah, what's that mean?
In financial services world, what
right.
you do, the wealth component. So you manage assets, you guide people through their retirement decisions. You help people with making money decisions and investing and what have you. There also is a risk component, not the risks of investing, but the risk of protection and planning. So think all things life insurance, disability income protection for the hardworking, as of course, long-term care planning, which we will discuss for those nearing or in retirement already. And then part of that component as well is a Providence Partners has a benefits arm, a group benefits arm. So we can go in and offer insurance products to employers for the benefit of their employees. So a benefits firm that offers group product. we are an advisor to the advisor.
Right.
It doesn't mean that a consumer off the street can't give me a call and ask a question, or anyone on our team. It just means my role each and every day, and has been for the last 25 years, is to focus on working with you, Josh, and your clients. So technically, you're my client. You know, Josh, you run into an opportunity to help a client with a risk plan. You're giving me a call to wade through the risk waters, whether it's life insurance, disability, long-term care, you name it. I'm there to assist you so that you have the proper information and intel to give your client and hopefully fulfill a solution that they're looking to fill, whether it's family needs planning or estate planning or business planning for your business owner client, or for the affluent person who's making a good income and they want to protect that income with disability, to the people that are nearing the end of their working years, maybe getting close to their retirement years, and they're looking for a long-term care plan. Always like to say, and you can echo this in your sentiments with your clients, is, do you have a plan in place? And simply insert the risk that we're wanting to discuss with the client at that time. So Josh, do you have a plan in place to protect your family?
Right. Yes.
Josh, do you have a plan in place to protect your income? Josh, do you have a plan in place to protect your assets and your family dynamic should you experience a long-term care event later in life?
Like it.
Those are the simple questions that we ask. So Providence Partners, we are a advisor to the advisor to the agent, and works in concert with you and your clients.
Very good. And Jay, I'll say this up front. So Gulf Coast Financial Advisors and Providence Partners are not affiliated. You all are just sponsoring the show, which I'm really appreciative of. You and I, new listeners or even regular listeners, Jay, anybody that's kind of followed our journey, they know that we have been doing things both in podcast form and video form. We have done a lot of things for a lot of years. So I've always appreciated you being there with me as we've grown the business to this point. So.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and it's you work hard for your clients each and every day. You've developed a reputation over here in the Gulf Coast. It's very positive, and certainly, when you look at the Baldwin County community and the Mobile communities, it's an opportunity to help you. The sponsorship is simply to help people become aware. You through the years, I've always focused on the wealth and the investments in the retirement. Hence the name of the show. And you said, hey, I think it's also right to bring in some of this risk component, because it's just as important to have conversations with those clients of yours, those prospects of yours in those areas of planning. When they hear us talk about it on the radio, maybe it maybe answers a question they have in their mind, gives them the confidence to know they're dealing with the right folks.
Love it. All right. So, and as regular listeners will know, I did all that the hard way, Jay, so I appreciate your kind words. So a couple things here, and then we're going to jump into our topic of the day. Now, on our last episode, I did announce that Gulf Coast Financial Advisors had recently formed as our own registered investment advisory firm. We're registered with the state of Alabama. That is RIA for short, for those of you that know my industry. I also announced that the addition of several new team members. Some will be in-house, some will be in a consulting role like Jay will be. And then, of course, I announced the coming addition of an office in Mobile. We're working out the final details on that, but that will join our existing offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. So hopefully for this area, obviously we have ambitions and dreams of growing beyond Baldwin County and Mobile. But for now, that's wonderful, convenient places for the majority of the folks listening to this radio program to meet us, okay? The other cool thing I'll share with you around this radio program, Jane, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Coast in Retirement is one of the 6 finalists for Lagniappe's. That's a local weekly, their annual Nappy Awards.
If they're listening, they know what a Lagniappe Nappie Award is.
Thank you. That's fair. We're in the running for Best Lifestyle Radio Show. And so if any of y'all listening, especially if you're a regular listener, if you'd like to vote for us, the voting is open now. And I think it's voting through May 26th, if I remember correctly. You can vote once per day, once per email per day. Simply go to www.votenappies.com, find the media link, and then find our show under the Best Lifestyle Radio Show. And like they say in the old times, vote early, vote often. So,
and it's once per email address.
Once per email per day.
That's been a little sting through the years because people are like, well, God, I've got 4 email addresses.
You can
my
use
work, my personal, my wife's, my husband's, my kids. I'm married. Whatever it is, it's per email address. Just if you really, really like this show, just remember it's per email address per day.
Yeah, it's kind of an enthusiasm test, honestly, but it's fun. Hey, we gathered enough votes to be one of 6 finalists, and there was a lot of shows up for contention.
If that's only where you land,
we did great.
Congratulations.
I'm very happy for a show, as we've discussed before, no formal training for any of this stuff. All right, so Jay, let's pivot to our topic of the day. We got about 8 or 9 minutes here left. It's something that we mentioned earlier. We're going to be discussing long-term care. Some will know it as extended healthcare event. And I want to tee it up this way because in my line of work, as Jay alluded to, we are a financial planning firm first. That's what we lead with. The investment management piece is obviously very important. We've got to be competent in that. We've got to have a system around how we do our investment management. But really, to me, a lot of the value that someone extracts from dealing with Gulf Coast Financial Advisors when dealing with our team is being a part of that comprehensive financial planning process, because it looks not just at your investments, but as Jay alluded to, so you've got one side where you're hopefully growing your assets, where if you've got investments and they're invested properly, hopefully you're seeing growth over time. But on the other side, how do you mitigate the risk of your own health failing or an accident, a terrible accident like a car wreck or anything along those things where, as Jay and I will discuss, in my opinion, an extended healthcare event, something that really knocks you out for a number of years, is probably one of the single sources greatest destruction to personal wealth that's out there. It's up there with business bankruptcy. It's up there with all kinds of things. When you've got an extended healthcare event, particularly if you don't have the assets to dedicate towards it, it can be financially devastating. And I guarantee there's people listening that show nodding their head, Jay, because they've dealt with it, or they've dealt maybe with parents or grandparents have gone through and they've seen it in their everyday lives. So, Jay, I'm going to tee it up this way. Many years ago, and we won't mention any client names, but I had a particular client. She'd had just a little bit of health problems. She was generally healthy, but she had some minor health problems. She was in her late 60s at the time, and she had gone through with her own father. She had gone through an extended healthcare event. She saw the expense around that. She was not really qualified or necessarily interested in what someone would call a traditional long-term care policy, which listeners will explain the differences later as the show goes on. But she did have a bucket of money that she wanted to dedicate to possibly helping her 2 kids take care of her if she ever needed long-term care. So we used a program called an asset-based long-term care program. And how it worked was, Jay, I'm going to turn it over to you in a second. She was able to dedicate a chunk of money. That money was leveraged up into a program where she could draw to, I don't remember the exact number, Jay, so I'm going to be off here. I want to say it was 2x or 3x what she put in.
Sounds good. Yep.
Right. And then on top of that, she had a death benefit that was tied in some degree to her original premium, which I want to circle back on that because it was a pleasant surprise what happened there at the end. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you how the story ends. She was one of my favorite clients. She was a wonderful lady. She passed away here recently, and she actually passed away. She got sick fairly quickly, and she ended up not even having to use the policy, but she left behind a death benefit that if she'd had a traditional long-term care policy would have not been on the table. It would have been, traditional long-term care is not unlike carrying like car insurance. If you never get in a car wreck, you don't use it. You're not going to be mad for not getting in a car wreck. You just don't get any benefit out of it if you never use it, right? So, Jay, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's talk a little bit about that because what we're going to do with this program is we're going to talk about the different ways to pay for long-term care. I wanted to use that as kind of a tee-off block for, hey, I have personally, in my financial advising role, have had a great experience, and my clients had a great experience with an asset-based long-term care policy. May not be the solution for everybody, but let's talk about the different options, especially for any of y'all listening that are looking at, hey, what are the options out there if I ever need to cover myself and not be a burden, is usually how someone will term it to us.
Well, when we ask the question, Josh, do you have a plan in place, Mr. and Miss Client, or whomever you're speaking to? Do you have a plan in place to protect your assets, your wealth, your money, and your family dynamic, whether they live here locally or they live somewhere else in the country, whether it's a plane flight or a car ride, if they're long distance away? We always like to say, what's your plan? Do you have one? And if they don't have one, that's when we start asking a few more probing questions. The number one I like to always bring up is, does that concern you? Because to some people listening, they could care less what their plan is, right? But if they do feel like that they don't have a plan and it is concerning, well, certainly that's where they would say, well, what are my options? There are 4 options in planning for long-term care. There's considered self-insure, which is not really insurance at all. It's called self-pay. So if somebody says, well, I've got enough assets, Josh, here with you, other sources on the sidelines, those are going to be the dollars that I would use should I want to have assisted living facility, or maybe I want to live in my own home and get care at my home from skilled nursing if that should arise. That's self-insure, or I like to say self-pay.
Right.
The other one is traditional long-term care. I equate traditional to homeowners or car or insurance. You pay a premium and you get a benefit. You don't get a benefit until you file a claim. And when you file a claim, that's because you cannot perform 2 of 6 activities of daily living, or you've got a cognitive impairment. I'll explain activities of daily living and cognitive in a second. So if you have a traditional policy, you pay a premium, you don't get anything for it other than when you file a claim, if you file a claim. There are some limitations with traditional, and this is across the board. They're still very good companies and very good products, but they have limited duration of how long the benefit will last, and they have premiums, the cost of the policy, that's not necessarily guaranteed, meaning you might own this, you might buy it at age 55 or 60, which is really the prime time that we see folks look into this type of planning. And maybe when you're 65 or 70 down the road, you might get a letter from that company that says, thank you for being a policyholder. Our claims experience is such that we need to change your benefit. Your premium is going to go up. However, you can have a decision at that time. You can say, well, in traditional long-term care planning, I want to keep my premium the same. Well, if you keep the premium the same, the opposite happens. The benefit comes down. So we're looking at traditional. That's usually a 2 to 5, maybe 6-year benefit period. And we're looking at a premium that's not guaranteed and a benefit that's not guaranteed. Still a reputable company, reputable product. You've got a plan. In our world, traditional long-term care policies are the least expensive way to solve for this problem. They might not necessarily be the best because we have to ask about your longevity in your family, your other asset position. Are you in a state where this is going to be expensive, or in a municipality where this is going to be a little bit more expensive? Oddly enough, it is more expensive if you're living in a rural area. That is something that people really don't understand, is rural areas.
Well, lack of supply of facilities.
Because it takes longer to get somebody out there to take care of you, and you don't have a facility around the corner or down the street.
Right.
You've got to hop in the car and drive, an hour and a half or 2 hours away to maybe get some medical service or get anything taken care of on your body or your mind or what have you.
Right.
So long story short, there's self-insured, there's traditional. Many years ago, there came about hybrid long-term care. That's actually what you gave your client. You offered them, and they said, that's what we want to do. A hybrid long-term care takes an asset you already have and allows for you to leverage that asset up anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times of the amount of money you deposit. Then that becomes 2 times or 3 times or 4 times a bucket of money that you can use for long-term care. That leverage gives you more confidence in what your plan is. That also gives you access and control to your asset. So if you actually need to tap into that asset for any reason, it's there for you to do so.
It's got some form of cash value.
It's got some form of an equity component, cash value. And there's at least one company out there where you can actually put a lifetime benefit rider on that hybrid plan. And then there are there's one more. So I mentioned there's 4: self-pay or self-insure, traditional, hybrid long-term care. Then there's traditional life insurance with a rider. So if you're listening, you say, well, what's the difference between a hybrid insurance and a life insurance with a rider? Just think in terms of, do you still have a significant amount of protection needed where life insurance is needed?
Okay.
Whether it be a family needed plan or a business plan or a line of credit, a larger mortgage, a second home, anything that would require having some insurance in force to take care of a debt or an obligation, we can design a plan where somebody can get a $500 or $1 million or more of life insurance, and we can add a rider on there that will accelerate the death benefit in the form of a long-term care benefit. So all of this happens when we have a conversation with the client, and then they say, well, how do I make a claim? Well, the claim comes about if you can't perform 2 of 6 activities of daily living or cognitive impairment. Activities of daily living, I always like to think it's the song by the Beatles goes like something like, woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head. Well, that kind of stuff is also activities of daily living.
All right.
The first one is being able to get up. Get yourself up out of bed. Can you do that? The second one after we get up in the morning is we head off to the restroom. We go to the bathroom. So we got to think about that. And when we're in there, being able to bathe and shower ourselves, that's the third activity of daily living. The fourth is after we finish getting ready for the day, after bathing and showering, we get dressed. So getting dressed is an activity of daily living, but be able to put clothes on. Then we go downstairs. So the transferring, being able to walk and move and get yourself, out of bed to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the closet, from the closet downstairs to the kitchen. That's called transferring. And then eating, we have breakfast, we feed ourselves, we make a smoothie, we're doing whatever. If we can do that, that is also considered an activity of daily living. I'm at 6, Josh. So the seventh one, I'm at 5. So the sixth one is going to the bathroom. Right. Actually, the continence, being able to void, if you will. I hate to say that, but that's what it is. Being able to take care of that and not have any help doing so. Those are the 6 activities of daily living. The other issue could be cognitive impairment. You might be able to have all of your facilities and your faculties, but mentally you might have early onset of Alzheimer's or any other cognitive issue. That brings us to, if you can still do the other 6, but you've got something going on and a doctor says you've got something going on, you can also make a claim.
Very good. Now, Jay, you mentioned, so we're going to start wrapping this up and then we're going to circle back in segment 2, but you mentioned the 4 ways for paying for long-term care. We had self-insured or self-pay, traditional long-term care policies. That would be the things that have been around for decades. The relatively newer hybrid-based type of policies, what I referred to earlier as asset-based. Then there was the life insurance with an accelerated death benefit is another option. And the one we didn't touch on, people get confused a lot. They confuse Medicare with Medicaid. And I know that's not necessarily an option anybody wants to pursue, but Medicaid would be the program that would step in a low income, low asset type of environment to provide for long-term care payment, correct?
Correct.
Right. And we're not going to pick on. It's a wonderful program to have. It'd be a harder world if we didn't have it, but there's going to be some give and take when it comes to Medicaid.
Yeah, you've got to financially qualify. Right. You can only really have a limited amount of assets.
Very small amount.
A little bit of money in your checking account.
Right.
A car that you probably can't drive. You're allowed to have that. But really, you've got to be financially almost at zero.
Right, pretty much.
Before Medicaid will kick in and take care of things.
There's a reason they call it spend down to Medicaid.
That is correct. Now, I will say, Medicaid facilities, and I'm not throwing shade here, right, but these are from federal government benefit. These are now state-run and state employee Medicaid facilities. It might be that you visited one of these facilities and you weren't real comfortable. They do have to follow pretty strict budgets.
Right.
Their staff is very good at what they do, but oftentimes those staff workers, they work really hard, but they don't have the largest benefit package that you can think about when you think about some other facilities. So if it's an option for you or your family, it's a great option to look at. But remember, there's going to be assets. You got to really have nothing to own or nothing to speak of, and you might be in a facility that is not something that you want you or your family member to be in. Well,
folks, if you want to have a conversation around these type of issues, and particularly as it relates to a larger comprehensive financial plan, we're not one-trick ponies here. It's going to be more, how does this tie in to your other needs and your other assets? If you do what you'd like to have that, once you make an appointment, you can give us a call. Again, that's 251-327-2124, or you can reach us through our website. That's gulfcoastfh.com. FA, so that'd be Gulf like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast as in the show title, FA is in financialadvisor.com. Now on our site, upper right-hand corner, you can click a little blue button that will put a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar, or there's a place where you can contact us and send us a direct message if you want to have a little preliminary conversation, or you can do all three. Give us a call, send us a message, put it on the calendar, reach out to us if you'd like to have that conversation. All right, folks, so coming up next, there's a lot going on in the world, particularly the world of finance, investments, and money. Now, every week, we scour the interwebs for helpful financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. So why don't you join Jay and I after the break to hear us discuss this week's relevant headlines and what we normally call Michelle with the news of the week. She's not here. She'll be back next week, but we'll call it Josh and Jay Chop Up the News for the segment. Stay tuned.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Welcome back to Coasting Retirement. Your host, Josh Knoll here. So as we discussed before the break, every week we scour the interwebs for helpful financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. Our job, we think anyway, is to help you all understand how these headlines impact you, especially when it comes to your money. We also, just for reference, we include the article links in our show transcript. You can find that on our website, gulfcoastfa.com. Just go under the podcast tab, and that is posted the day after this show will air on Sunday. That way you can read these articles more in depth. But with all that said, let's jump to, we don't have Michelle here this week, Jay, so I'm having to fill in for her spot.
I'll do my best.
So I'm actually going to play Michelle here. I can't talk like her. It'd be impossible and it'd sound ridiculous. But let's start with our first article of the week. Jay, here we go. All right. So coming to you from CBS News. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think we've ever referenced CBS News on here. I didn't even know that they had written articles on there, but this was a pretty good one. It's a relatively recent article. It says long-term care insurance pros and cons to know. And Jay, I found this one, and the reason I found it, I wanted some kind of broad range that had both the pros and the cons, because if somebody listened to us in that first segment, you could come away thinking that we recommend long-term care in every single situation. That's not the case. It's not necessarily needed for every person. Jay referenced self-pay. There are absolutely some instances where, if you feel like it and you've got the financial ability, fine. But there's just things that for anybody, even if you do have a considerable amount of assets and you do want to dedicate some of those to your long-term care, potential long-term care needs, I think it still behooves you to take a look at some of the programs that are out there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But back to this article, Jay, I picked it because there was, on the pro side, it helps protect your savings. I'm going to tee this up for you. I'd like to get your feedback. Long-term care pros. Protects your savings. You may be able to choose your caretaker. And then this is one that I kind of forgot. Tax-free benefits. So I'm gonna tee it up from there. What's your thoughts on this article?
Well, this article is great, Josh. I'm glad you located it and put it out there. It's from January, I believe, of this year. Right. So it's relatively new out there on the CBS News wire. I'm thankful, but they said pros and cons. There are pros here. Obviously, financial security. I spoke in the earlier segment. Do you have a plan in place? That speaks directly to financial security. If you don't have a plan in place and it concerns you, that's when we need to have a conversation with an advisor and an insurance professional. peace of mind for loved ones. And I reference this. Maybe you have sons or daughters or grandsons and daughters or any extended family that here live locally. Some people listening may say, well, I'm going to rely on them to give us some guidance or some assistance or some financial support. My daughter will come over here and help me get to the restroom or help me get dressed. Well, I'm currently experiencing that as well on one side of my family. It's very difficult and taxing on that loved one.
Right.
So that could also deteriorate their lifestyle. So peace of mind for the plan, not only for yourself, but for also your family members. Now, some people listening may say, well, I don't have a son or daughter that lives here locally that I could rely on. They live in Birmingham, or they live in Atlanta, or they live in California.
They live in Alabama. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah. Is it going to be, is that extended family, that family that's close and that you love and they love you, are they going to be able to drop what they're doing, travel home, and help you go through whatever you're going through?
And a lot of people would be willing to do it, Jay, but it's just financially impossible.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And if you do it now, if you're listening and you say, well, what's the pros of doing it now? If you're healthy, the pro is you get to customize and choose the plan you want. And you get to say, well, this fits us as a couple, or this fits me as an individual, or a widow, or a widower, or a single divorcee. It does, it's a plan that I get to have and design right now when I'm healthy. So that customizable coverage, the tax benefits.
Yeah.
If you pay for an insurance plan out of your own pocket, and that premium is not deducted anywhere from a group employer or from your own expenses. We'll never.
Like if you're self-employed or you have a business.
We don't want to.
This is really important.
And there are some long-term care components. We don't want to get in the weeds on that today,
Right.
But there are some tax deductible features of long-term care planning. But without getting into the weeds today, the benefit that we would receive, Josh, is an income tax-free benefit. It's actually a 1099 LTC.
There you go.
And it comes in and you put it down give it to your CPA or whoever's preparing your taxes. If you do them yourself, you make sure that you account for that money that came in, but you are not taxed on that money when it comes in as a benefit. The younger you decide, the healthier that you decide, that's also when you look at premiums and expense. If we're looking at traditional long-term care, the pros of obviously looking at it today when I'm young and healthy meaning, 45, 50, 55, 60, even 65, we can get a very reasonable premium that fits the need and the plan that we want. The bottom line is it is, it's something that we need to look at. I always say the pros, the one I like the most, access and control. Having access and control to the plan and the lifestyle that you think you want to have should an extended healthcare event come up. Peace of mind, extremely important for you and your family members, and a protection, a fence around those assets you've worked hard to live off of and maybe transfer to the next generation. Some people don't think about, well, if I'm going to self-pay or self-insure, those assets become the primary vehicle we use to pay the bills. So if somebody doesn't have a plan, Josh, and you come in and ask them, I'm sorry to hear this, which asset do you want to designate where we start taking this money from first to pay these assisted living costs at home or the assisted living facility? Because remember, when we had this conversation 7 years ago, you told us you wanted to self-pay.
Right.
That will quickly deteriorate a family's wealth. Especially if it goes into long-term taking care of somebody, speaking of Alzheimer's or any long-term debilitating disease.
Well, and our financial planning software does it. Just like it points to a bucket of assets for income production, when and if we have a need for long-term care, we're going to point it towards that bucket of assets. And whether you like it or not, that's where it's going to take it from, right? Yeah,
that's right. So let's talk about the cons. The cons is if you're listening to this and you're a little bit older, it's no big deal. We can still have the conversation. There are products and strategies we can look at all the way out to, I believe, age 80.
Okay.
So even 85 with one company. There are some but the con is the older or the longer you wait, the more expensive the premium becomes for the protection plan, or the lesser amount of benefit you would get per month. If anybody's listening, say, well, golly, how do we figure out what we're going to need? There are cost of care calculators everywhere.
Right.
If you simply Google cost of care calculator, you'll determine what the average costs are here in the Gulf Coast area, whether you live in Baldwin County, Mobile County, or any other rural area outside of Mobile and Baldwin County and happen to be listening to this, you can figure out what the cost of care is going to be. You can also add some inflation measures to that cost of care, and you can project out, well, what will it cost in 10 years? What will it cost in 20 years? If I'm looking at it today and I'm 50 or 55, what will it cost if I'm 75 and I have an event? That's how we can back into a plan and customize it. But just remember, the longer we wait or the less healthier we become, the less control and access we have on designing our plan.
Well, Jay, that's perfect tee up for our next article. So this one's coming from AARP, and I don't mean to make tease anybody that gets an AARP magazine. I'm assuming coming next year when I turn 50 before you do, I'll start getting that magazine, right? Is that the kicker?
You sure will. You could be a card carrying AARP member. Go to McDonald's and get your discounted cup of coffee.
And I'm like everybody else, man. I think I'm 15 years younger than I am at times. But so our article next one, Jay, comes from AARP, and it kind of ties in nicely to what you were saying about the right age. The article title is called "Buy Long-Term Care Insurance at the Right Age to Get the Best Value." Now, Jay, we kind of alluded to, we already talked about the opening of this article on our past commentary here, is that if you are younger and healthier in general, you're obviously going to get a little bit more bang for your buck, right? But what I found interesting here, and I know you have in your head probably a little bit more specific numbers for Alabama, but I'm going to quote what AARP has in this article. It says in 2021, with the most recent year for the data available, the national median, of course, these numbers are going to be out of date. Know this already, listeners. The national median cost for a private bed in a nursing home was $108,405. $108,000 per year. Okay. A year-long stay in your own room and an assisted living facility runs $54,000. These numbers are now 3+ years long in the tooth.
So let's determine what's the difference between that, because right. Nursing home is 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, full skilled medical care from medical practitioners. So if you know anybody or you've ever visited anyone in a nursing home, you know that if something bad happens without having, if somebody has a bad long-term care event and they have a lot of trouble with their activities of daily living, then they need to be and sometimes they could have other ailments that are bothering them. Yep. They need 24-hour, 7 days a week care. Nursing home is going to be where they end up. That is going to be the most expensive care.
Right.
Half that cost, though, on the average, would be the assisted living. I can do a lot of these things on my own. However, if I have a fall or if I have a spill or if I need help doing this or help doing that, there are a lot of assisted living facilities that are a better option than, say, somebody's home that might have 1, 2, maybe 3 levels where they're not really, they can't go up and down stairs anymore. It's difficult to transfer or walk around your own home. So assisted living facilities, maybe the home is just too big. Maybe somebody's passed away, or maybe everybody's moved out, or maybe the home is, as we discussed earlier, in a rural part of the county or too far away to visit loved ones. If you come to an assisted living facility, loved ones can see you on a regular and consistent basis because it's just down the street,
right,
or a short drive away. So, but an assisted living facility, Josh, I'm okay to live on my own. I want my own room, and I get to make it how I wish. I get a community of other folks that I can be with. I can choose to engage with them or not engage with them, but I'm in a facility that's going to take care of me if something should come up, and I still do have trouble with some of my activities of daily living or the cognitive impairment.
All right, and then one last thing on this article, Jay. So in here, ARP says that a 65-year-old couple, if they wait 10 years to get coverage, on average, their premium would double, almost 100% increase. And if they will, even if they'll back it up to age 70, if they wait till age 70, that reduces their odds of getting covered by nearly 50%. And the reason I say that, there's no magic number. I will tell you that everybody with a lot of experience in our industry bang our head against a wall when we hear Dave Ramsey tell everybody to wait till they're 65. For some people, that's totally fine. But how many times has somebody walked in, Jay, in our office and said, I really need to get long-term care insurance right now. And you say, what do you got? What's your health issue?
Either A, they have a health issue themselves that a doctor's just told them, hey, you need to start making some plans. Or B, and this is where we see a lot of planning come, they're dealing with it.
Yeah,
they're
100%.
dealing with their own parents in a situation or grandparents, and they realize, I don't want to be in that situation, or I don't want to see our wealth deteriorate and spent down. We've worked too hard to get it where it is today, or they just want a peace of mind plan because they've seen the complexities that come with helping a family member or a loved one deal with it.
Well, and I'm going to say this before I move to our third and final article. Jay, anybody that's listening, if you're interested in this, and a lot of times if you're a mature consumer of investments and insurance, sometimes you've sat through what I would consider possibly a pushy long-term care type of presentation. If you're interested in having this conversation, whether you're dealing with Jay or I or both of us together, this is all about education and giving you information, because at the end of the day, it has to be a plan that fits into the rest of your comprehensive financial plan. It has to make sense. It's not about just getting the biggest thing you can possibly afford and the heck with the rest of whatever your plan may need to accommodate for. It's about fitting into the overall plan. So if you are interested in that, give us a call, 251-327-2124. All right, Jay, we got time for one more quickly. This comes from CNBC Business. The title of the article is Not Having Long-Term Care Insurance Can Be the Single Biggest Devastator, quote, the single biggest devastator of your financial plan. And I picked this one because it included a financial plan. Very rarely, well, actually, Jay, never. We don't implement long-term care plans, policies into a financial plan without having a financial plan. There's going to be, it's not just a one-off thing. It's going to be tied into everything else. But again, I wanted to talk about this, and I alluded to it in the very beginning. In my opinion, from my experience, been doing this now almost 15 years. You've been doing it almost 25 years. Unfortunately, there's a ton of things. You're in the risk management business for a reason, because there's a ton of risk to people's wealth. But one of the biggest risks is a long-term care or extended healthcare event. That is one of the most financially devastating things you can go through. Particularly, I was fortunate with my grandma and grandpa. We had a big family, had aunts and other people that were able to help. But as you alluded to, Jay, most people are not in that situation. And in this article, it actually recommends, again, this is an article, not my recommendation, but it says, hey, take a look no later than age 55, right? And it's even got a guy in here, they quote that he bought this thing at age 27. This sounds a little extreme, but you get the idea. So again, the point of this article can be the single biggest devastator to your financial plan. What you guys say? We got about a minute left.
Tail risk. If you've amassed a wealth and you've got money to live on and you're ready to coast into retirement, Josh.
There we go.
What's the biggest disruptor to that coast and that drive and that retirement plan is if you have an extended healthcare event that's going to cost you more money than you thought it was going to cost. Whether you need care at home or care in a facility, assisted living, or full-blown nursing. And we just discussed the costs. That will deteriorate and blow up a financial plan. The best way to mitigate tail risk of your portfolio and your investments and your retirement and your other assets, so you don't have to spend those for your care, is to look at a product or look at a solution that our insurance industry has developed. And again, there's 3 different ways to look at it: traditional, hybrid, or life with the rider.
That's fantastic.
Life insurance with the rider.
All right. Well, very good. So again, folks, if you're interested in having this conversation, particularly as it relates to the rest of your financial plan, why don't you give us a call? It's 251-327-2124. Or you can go on our website. That's gulfcoastfa.com, GULF, Coast, like the coast of, or like in the show title. FA is a financialadvisor.com. Upper right-hand corner, click the blue button, put something on our calendar, or reach us through the contact page, or do all of the above. Michelle picks on me a lot, but I actually make sure I try to answer the phone every time I get a radio show lead, because it's fun.
It is fun. I'm glad you do that.
A lot of times they've listened to the show for a while, so we try to make it as welcoming as we can. All right, so coming up next, folks, this is a fun segment, and I'm going to preface it a little bit in the fact that Jay and I are both very busy. We have regular jobs. I'm full blown working Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. He's doing his thing with Providence Partners. So we had time to get the show ready to this point. But for our third segment, we're going to be flying blind a little bit. We're going to be flying by wire here. It's called Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. What have been some of my predictions? Have I been right? Was I ever wrong? If I was wrong, how wrong? What do I think is going to affect investors in the near future or maybe even the distant future? And so, Jay, we talk about these things, and generally speaking, Michelle pokes fun at me because on the stuff where I whiffed at, I'm usually pretty fair with it. I don't make it all wins on the things that we put in here. She always gets to put in something where I've swung and missed pretty badly. i.e., my Bitcoin prediction for 2024 is a little off there. But anyway, stay tuned. Coming up next, Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Welcome back. Your host, Josh Knoll, here alongside my guest co-host, Mr. Jay Stubbs. So, Jay, I'm opinionated. I have strong opinions at times. I would say a radio show host that isn't probably wouldn't be very interesting to listen to, right? And, of course, I'm paid in my profession to offer professional guidance and opinions to my clients. Otherwise, what use would I be? So, now, sometimes I feel so strongly about something that I talk about it publicly on the various podcasts and radio shows that I've had. Sometimes I'll even make predictions. And while I feel like I'm usually proved right because I'm fairly skeptical, a lot of times I swing and miss. So we're going to, with Michelle not here to poke fun at me and laugh at me right in my face like normal, we're going to do a little tennis back and forth on this.
You got it.
All right. So I'm going to hit you with this. And I'm going to tee this up as best I can. We have, in the past on this show, we have talked about meme stocks and certain stocks that were wildly overvalued compared to their underlying intrinsic value, right?
Right.
One of those, at least for a time period, and this has been several months ago, was a electric vehicle manufacturer named Rivian. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Have you seen a Rivian running around Mobile?
Yeah.
They look like a Range Rover.
They are.
Right. Okay. So they make a great looking
I was
vehicle.
behind one the other day.
Okay. All right. So
I was like, what in the world is that?
That is a Rivian. So it was meant to be kind of the SUV and small truck equivalent to Tesla. Now, I personally think that the Rivians look really nice. They look great. But there was a time period, Jay, where the valuation of Rivian was almost 1/3 the market cap of Ford when Rivian had delivered, and I mean maybe 10,000, 50,000 vehicles compared to Ford delivering that on by 8 a.m. on a Friday morning kind of thing.
Right.
And so we talked about that, and I said, hey, now this is a great example of something that is based on future hope. Okay. Now, here's where I'm about to stitch it all together. We also talk about the Magnificent Seven stocks that have been carrying a lot of the weight of the market increase over last year. Those Alphabet which is Google, Meta, which is Facebook, Microsoft, so on and so forth, right? One of those Magnificent Seven stocks is Tesla, the kind of the biggest, or the at least American-based, largest electric vehicle manufacturer. Tesla is getting, I haven't even looked today, Jay, but Tesla has an outsized share proportion of any index that it's included in, including the S&P 500. And it's been going through all kinds of turmoil lately. In fact, I know just here recently, in the last day or two, they announced a bunch more layoffs. Here's what I want to ask you. Here's the point of all that rambling. I have been hypercritical of the overvaluation of the stock value of electric vehicles. However, I have held pretty steady in my position that the generation after you and I is used to just plugging stuff in, letting it sit, unplugging it, and go. So I think that it's coming whether we like it or not. And so this is one of those where I'd like to hear your opinion on it, and I'd like to get your prediction.
So first and foremost, if you ask me if I will ever own an electric vehicle, I happen to be married to a Chevy dealer owner family. They've had their hybrids.
Okay.
You know, they all of the manufacturers of vehicles in this country are being mandated or challenged, if you will, by the government to say, hey, you've got to be more emission friendly. We've got to go make this push. You hear the news stories about the weight of the batteries and the parking decks. And if every car in the parking deck was an electric vehicle with a battery storage capacity in it, that the deck was going to collapse.
Right.
Those are some funny things to listen to, but
Or the fires that won't stop for 2 days.
I will I will never have one unless, you know, my brother-in-law at UJ Chevrolet says, this is what you're going to get, Jay. I said, okay. So anyway, long story short, I've ridden in them. I think they're neat as can be. I think the software, I think the technology is great. But you're right. The next generation, what is that going to look like? Well, certainly if the manufacturers are bringing them out and they're making them attractive and they're making them affordable, specifically on that next battery round, then I think the next generation, the generations after that, will be totally in tune with it and be able to accept it and move forward. My son is a graduating senior this year, 28 class of 2024. He is going to be in a vehicle that I want him to be safe.
Yeah.
I'm not really concerned about the mileage and the wear and tear on the vehicle. I just want a safe vehicle. So, you know, a lot of people want that safety as well.
Here's the thing, Jay. He could probably care less if it's a V8 under the hood or not, right?
That's right.
Like my kids, you know, I had a Mustang, and no way I was gonna have a V6 in that. My kids could care less.
The biggest thing that he wants is
if it even has an engine.
He wants his phone to be able to connect through CarPlay. Does everything work on the, I mean, am I going to be able to listen to my music and my podcasts?
That's so true.
If somebody calls, am I going to be able to answer it without having to put it to my ear? Can I listen to it, talk to them hands free, and keep both hands on the wheel? That's all they want. And they want the air conditioner to work.
All right.
So yeah,
we'll see what the future. So we're making a prediction that EVs are here to stay. We shall find out.
I think they are. I think they are here to stay just because the manufacturers are under mandates.
That's fair. All right. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed a peek behind the curtain and how Jay and I form our opinions and predictions. So now, for those of you all that have been listening, if you want to reach out to us one more time, that phone number is 251-327-2124. Or you can go to our website, make an appointment. That's gulfcoastfa.com. Now, folks, that's it for us this week here in Coast in Retirement. I want to give a huge thank you to my guest co-host, Mr. Jay Stubbs. Thanks for coming in, man. It's great.
My pleasure, Josh. Good to be back with you and good to be a sponsor.
That's right. Thank you to our awesome radio station. That's FM Talk 106.5 out of Mobile. Many thanks to the provider of our show music. That's local band Sloth Racer. And also many thanks to our show editor and producer, Mr. Chazare Gray. And as always, my sincere appreciation for all of you out there that have been listening and joining us on this journey. We'd be loved to be part of your journey as well. Also, don't forget to vote for Coasting in Retirement for 2024 Nappy Award. Till we talk again next Sunday, have a wonderful and productive week. This has been Coasting in Retirement with Josh Knoll. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, LLC, known as GCFA, is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Alabama and in such other jurisdictions where it is registered, filed the required notices, or is otherwise excluded or exempted from such registration and/or notice filing requirements. Registration does not indicate or imply that GCFA has attained a particular level of skill or ability, nor does it constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or any other state securities regulator. The Coasting in Retirement radio program serves mainly to disseminate general information, including those pertaining to GCFA's advisory services, together with access to additional investment-related information, publications, materials, and links. The publication of this radio show should not be construed by any client and/or prospective client as GCFA's solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities, nor should be interpreted as GCFA providing personalized investment advice or any type of professional advice for compensation wherever this program is broadcast. Any subsequent direct communication by GCFA with a prospective client will be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. Certain information news stories, headlines, data, charts, graphs, figures, or statistics presented on this radio program may have been obtained from third-party sources that are believed to be generally reliable, but which GCFA may not have independently verified. GCFA does not and cannot guarantee the timeliness, accuracy, or reliability of any such third-party information and undertakes no obligation to update or correct any information that may become obsolete, unreliable, or inaccurate. This radio program also contains the opinions, views, and perspectives expressed by Josh Knoll and any other GCFA representative, which are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, views, or perspectives of GCFA as a firm. Such personal views and opinions should not be construed as endorsements or professional advice from GCFA. GCFA makes no representation or warranty regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information on this radio program and disclaims any liability for any direct or indirect loss or damage incurred from using or relying on such information. GCFA and Providence Partners are not affiliated, nor are any of their respective representatives.